Welcome to Perfectly Paranormal, episode 95. My name's Annaschmidt, and I'm here every week to share with you true paranormal encounters and information about devils, demons, and dark energy beings that no one else talks about. And today you get an insight on how everyday people use their psychic abilities to alert them to the subtle and not so subtle changes in the energetic environment around us. I have 3 experiences for you, one of mine, one of Amy's, and one of Clare's. And all 3 have similarities about how our body's senses, psychic awareness, and our understanding of the energetic environment around us helped Clare and Amy to contact an energy clearer to solve their 2 rather strange, unusual, and slightly frightening problems. Now, we're going to start off today with Amy's encounter with something rather odd and unnerving. You're going to love this rather surreal experience. Believe me, it was totally surreal. Now, it's fascinating, always fascinating, how the universe works and connects us in the weirdest ways. Sometimes when you least expect it, but sometimes exactly when it's needed. And I've called this encounter the Cemetery Drive-By. Now, on a Wednesday afternoon, this was mid-August 2024, I was halfway through doing a remote house clearing, and I was focusing on bedroom 3 in this rather small villa in Italy, when I had a totally random, intense vision pop into my head. Now, it wasn't connected to this property, it was something else. It was of a young female being lifted off the ground by this massive entity. Like, seriously, it was nothing that I had seen before. And this being was attempting to separate her energy body from her physical body. And this thing, oh my goodness, this thing oozed darkness of the nastiest kind. Like, I know it sounds rather dramatic, and I've seen lots of these entities, but this one really got my attention. Now, in my mind, I found myself walking towards this thing. And it was so surreal, like I'm using that word again. I was calm and I was peaceful and I'm just walking towards this being. It was as if the universe had put Amy and me together so that I could help her. It was just the most unusual experience. And as I'm walking towards Amy, it was like some totally weird, freaky movie scene. I felt a presence behind me. And this wasn't a dark presence. This was a higher vibrational presence. And I knew what it was. I knew who it was. It was 2 archangelic beings. They were being my elite bodyguards. I've had this experience before where I've actually called them in to help me as bodyguards. This time I didn't. They were just simply present. And as I'm standing there with this young lady, as she's being lifted out of her body, I gently reached up and I grabbed her ankle as she was slowly being lifted higher and higher and higher. And I firmly said, no. And I just very gently pulled her back to the ground. Now, this is where the vision very abruptly finished. And it was probably within 10 to 20 seconds of that vision just dissipating. And I found myself sitting back at my work desk and I'm like, what the is going on? Like, what was that? That had nothing to do with the villa that I was working on, which was a very simple job. Another 5 seconds later, this is so funny how this worked. About 5 to 10 seconds later, my phone rang. And there was my friend Amy calling me to say that she was in desperate need of an energy clearing right now. She said to me that she suddenly felt very sick and very overwhelmed by this dark, all-encompassing sort of shadowy thing that had come out of nowhere. And she just didn't know what to do. Her partner was driving, and as always, he's quite oblivious to these energetic things that are going on. He was just oblivious to her dilemma. And she felt herself being sort of sucked into this dense, sort of cavernous energy, as she explained. She said she heard my name in her head. It must have been the same time that the archangelic bodyguards appeared. You know, this stuff is so out there. It's hard to explain how it works, but I'm just trying to give you what I saw and what she told me so you can sort of build your own picture of how this worked. So she heard my name and she very quickly rang me. She said she was so glad to hear my voice. She said that she had been experiencing this all-enveloping darkness, was the way she described it, and that it felt like it was swallowing her up, and she was just trying not to panic. She didn't want to upset her partner who was driving, and she's like, I don't know what to do with it. I have to say, now I knew why I'd seen that very sudden vision. Somehow, the two of them were connected. It was like the universe was showing me that she was going to ring me. Then she was unloading her experience that she was having. And I had to tell you about it. It was just one of those really odd, weird, strange things that someone out there might relate to one day. You're not going crazy when these things happen. There are lots of different types of energy beings in our environment. Anyway, back to the story. So I said yes to doing the energy clearing. Like I closed down my connection to the other property I was working on in Italy. And then I asked permission to connect to my friend Amy. So when I looked at Amy, I could see this entity. Like it was the darkest thing I've seen in a very, very long time. Now, I wasn't frightened, paranormal addict here, you know what I'm like. I just observed it. Very calmly. And it kind of observed me like, hello, who are you? And it was like a standoff. It was really, really interesting. It was dripping and oozing, this sort of revolting black sticky goo. It's the only way I can describe it. Amy was okay. For all those people out there that might be worrying, but Amy has my energy protection that I give all my clients. So this entity was on the outside of her energy field protection. I did the clearing while I was talking to her to give her a bit of reassurance that she would be okay. My dowsing, like I'm using my pendulum as I'm talking to Amy on the phone. This entity is what I call a summoned entity. It's not your stock standard freelancing demonic entity just roaming around our environment looking for its energetic food fix. This being had been invoked or summoned, if you want to call it, through some sort of black magic practice in a cemetery in a very out-of-the-way location. And my unsuspecting friend and her partner had just innocently been driving past. And this entity took a liking to my friend's emotional vulnerability. Now, these entities pick up on our vibrations. 100 people may have driven past that cemetery, that location, and it went, no, I'm not interested in them. Not interested in them at all. Amy is very psychically sensitive. And she'd had a particular interaction that had triggered her. This was a personal situation that had triggered her in sort of the last few days. And she ruminates about things. And sometimes things can upset her quite deeply. And this is where this entity picked up on her vibe. And it's like, right, that's a good food source. I'm going to hitchhike home with her. Now, luckily, like I keep saying, Amy's very aware. She's very aware when things change around her body. It's like feeling okay and then all of a sudden feeling really, really sick, like you've got the flu, like you want to throw up, like you don't feel well, your brain's spinning, your stomach's churning. We all know what that feels like. But it's such an instant change in your energy. You go, what the heck is that? Sometimes it's medical, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's energetic. That's what it was for Amy. Amy and her partner had driven past this cemetery. Like it was on the way to where they were going to do their work. And we both think that this entity came from that particular location because she said it was near the cemetery. So I don't have to know exactly where that entity's from to remove it. But the portal was closed. Like she gave me the name of the town. I looked it up and I went, okay, cemetery. And I call in my archangelic supporters and I please ask them to please locate and seal all sorcery and magical portals that have been opened in this particular location. Sometimes I'll hone it down to a particular street and then a house and a room and so forth. But on this occasion I couldn't. So I had to be a little bit broader. But it's all about the wording. which I might do an episode on that one day too. We'll talk about specific wording when you're working with spirit guides, angels, archangels, and entities. Good idea there, Anna. I will note that in my brain. Now, when I did my dowsing, it said that this entity had come through a portal or an interdimensional gateway, whatever you want to call it, that was still open in that location. Now, this portal, what I saw in my mind as I'm asking for it to be closed, sometimes I'm shown things that happen in locations. It's just one of my psychic quirkinesses. I was shown a man in sort of near the cemetery. I can't see exactly where he was. Who knows what he was doing? I mean, probably on the full moon, and he was just playing with fire and trying to summon demons to get his jollies. I mean, who knows? These people do these things and then they don't close the energetic doorways afterwards. They don't think of the consequences of their actions and how vulnerable people like Amy can be targeted by the entities that come through these portals. Now, to finish up this story, the portal was closed, cleaned, healed, sealed, as I call it. The entity was removed by Archangel Michael. I asked him to please escort this entity, that this being had been returned to its point of origin. Thank goodness for that. And I hope it stays there forever. That was one of the freakiest experiences that I've ever had. I'll never forget it. Never, never, never. Okay. So now on to our second experience. I hope you're enjoying this. This is a really good way of you understanding relatable experiences of things happening in the environment and how it can trigger and affect us, and how you can then find someone who's trained in mediumship, energy clearing, someone that can help you get rid of what's causing the problem. Now, this second experience, oh my, oh my, oh my, oh my. This is my experience, and this is connected to the Annabelle doll. I don't need to say any more. Like, we all know about Annabelle. Like, this is no joke. No joke. I never joke about paranormal entities. And you have to listen to what I experienced. You think I would have known better? I mean, even people like myself, sometimes we let our guard down a little bit. Look, let's get into the story. A friend and I, we were watching paranormal content on YouTube one day. We get together about once a month and we watch a paranormal movie while her kids are at school. It's the only time she gets to watch anything that she likes without small children around. Now, we were talking about Ed and Lorraine Warren. And after we'd watched our movie, I thought we could view the Warrens' room where they keep all their haunted objects. So we searched on YouTube and we found a few videos and we chose one. And as the video started, we were kind of talking about the movie we'd just watched and sort of relating it to experiences we'd had and unpacking it and all the things I always do. And I'm kind of teaching other people that awareness now. So we're sitting there and we're just talking. I felt a very sudden, tight restriction in my throat. Now, I wasn't sick. I didn't have any illness at all. And I started coughing and I coughed and I coughed and I coughed. And Laura's looking at me. She's like, where did that come from? And as I stopped coughing, my voice started to change. It got kind of, how can I explain it? It got a little bit raspy and the pitch of my voice changed, kind of the tone, the way that I speak. Remembering, oh my goodness, that this YouTube video was running in the background. I mean, it could have been anywhere. It could have been on TV. It's not specific to YouTube, so no problem with that. It was just this real life place that had lots of real life objects that were haunted, that had entities and spirits and God knows what, magic attached to them. I should have known better than to watch that. I really, really should have known better. And this is why I'm sharing this. I'm not embarrassed to say that sometimes I make mistakes with this. But my mistakes can help you learn from it. So I'm sitting there and my voice is getting really weird. And I'm looking at Laura like, this is strange. Like, I'm observing. I go into observation mode. And as I looked at the TV screen, what do you think was on the TV screen? They were focusing on the Annabelle doll. This is the one that sits in the wooden case. And it's got the cross on it and all the prayers and the inscriptions around it. My throat and voice had been fine before turning on this video, and I knew the connection. The entities in that doll, because yes, it is haunted or possessed or whatever you want to call it. This is a seriously haunted one though. Like, this is demonic level multiple, probably 5, 6, 7, who knows. But they felt my presence. They were aware of my energy, even though it's through a video. Energy is omnipresent. Those entities were aware of me, and my body was reacting to the energy coming through that video, and it was showing me lots of bodily symptoms. Coughing for me, sudden poke in the throat type coughing, is a sign of paranormal presence and your darker energy present, not spirits. Really, really dark entities. So this is just what I call digital transference. And don't ask me how it works. They just know that we're watching them. They sense my energy. Like Laura wasn't coughing, and we're both sitting there. We're both sitting there watching this video. Well, it's playing in the background while we're talking. She didn't start coughing. She didn't have any weird signs and symptoms, but they knew me. They know energy clearers. They know energy workers. I'm nothing special. I don't have any ego around working with the paranormal. It's just simply that I am a paranormal worker. I'm out there on the grapevine. They are aware of me and other people who do paranormal work. It's just a thing. So this change in voice was my body going, please turn that video off. We don't want you watching this. This is not good for you. So whether it was my spirit guides using my body, whether it's just my physical body and my energy body going, oh, you stupid woman, turn that off. So that's exactly what we did. The sudden coughing symptom is a tangible body warning. And a few people have had this, and they are now firm believers that if they get this sudden weird cough, it comes out of nowhere, they're not sick or anything like that, is that that's their body going, please don't go in there, or please move away from this person because they're not good for you. They've got entities attached to them. So I'm not trying to frighten you. This is all about education. Understanding how our bodies respond to paranormal energy in the environment. Now, our third experience is an even more unusual one. I wouldn't say worse, just different. Extremely different. This is connected to a house, or in this case, a villa. This was a villa energy clearing I was doing in Italy, another one this year, different to the other one I spoke about earlier. Now, this lady in this encounter is very energetically sensitive. She's what I'd call super sensitive, super sensitive to shifts in the environments around her. Now, as much as it's detrimental and can make you feel sick, it's actually really good because it shows you that that place or that person is either not good for you or you need to get them cleared. And you'll understand what I mean as we get into this story. Now, this lady, her body is responsive, like it's a dowsing tool. This is what I call it. This is her dowsing tool, and she's learned to trust it 100%. It alerts her to paranormal presence with mind-splitting headaches. That is what she gets. And she also describes some other symptoms as we get into this story. And this third experience I have called the stink in my villa. Now, Clare is a really good friend of mine. Had lots of experiences that I have helped her with and that I have shared with you over many of my episodes. Now, I change all my clients' names and their locations because it's purely about educating people about the situations. Now, Clare was heading to a family holiday villas in northern Italy, and she was with her mum and her sister, and they were on their sort of once a year holiday together. For the other 330, 340 days of the year, the villas are rented out to various tenants, people who come and go, people on holiday, people who want short stays, or they want long stays. You know, it's good to get a bit of money coming back in from your properties. Well, Clare was in for a surprise when she entered Villa 1. Now let's backtrack a tiny bit. 3 months earlier, she'd booked me in to do an energetic clearing of both the villas and the land to get rid of any energetic build-up from the previous tenants. Because as you know, people leave their energetic junk behind. They just do. It's just who we are as humans. Now, Clare being super sensitive and her body just responds to paranormal presences with mind-splitting headaches, or she'll feel changes in her body and she can't sleep, she can't relax, she can't stay in the location. She simply has to go somewhere else. She just can't do it. It sends her mind and her mental health into a big spin. Really, really does. Now, on this particular occasion, she smelt a really bad smell in this location. Now, she had the headaches and she had a few other things she's going to explain through what she's written to me in an email. But the smell was really, really important to note that. So I set about doing these clearings for Clare. I go through the land and I go through both villas. And the family was due to arrive in about 3 days' time. So I gave myself about 3 days to do this work. And I went through my usual process, clearing all of the human emotional imprints, all trauma imprints, which are... So the emotional imprints obviously are emotions or feelings that we create when we're feeling really traumatised. And we drop them wherever we sit, sleep, on the toilet, in the shower, at the kitchen, wherever, in bed. Trauma imprints are the actions. So it can be verbal abuse, physical violence, self-harming. So I cleared all the emotional imprints, all the trauma imprints. I looked for portals. I looked for magic. I looked for psychic attack. I looked for recreational substance, residual energy, and any alcoholism. That type of energy always leaves an imprint on properties and anything else on my very long list. I checked and rechecked the property, the land and the 2 villas, because I'm very OCD, and as humans, we do sometimes miss things. It's just part of who we are. So I checked and rechecked and sent her the reports with all the findings. Now, when Clare arrived at the site, she let her psychic senses do some detective work. She said that the land and Villa 2 was fine, felt great. But Villa 1, oh my, this was sending her body and her mind into a spin. She said going through the door felt like walking into a barrier. She felt full of fear and she had kind of a pain around her neck, like she was being threatened or even feeling mildly choked, is the way she explained it. Pushing through this energy into the kitchen was like, okay. And then she walked into the main bedroom and the room smelled like someone had been smudging, like using the sage, which has a very sort of dense, very specific smell. Or someone had burnt something really, really stinky. Like she said, it wasn't like burnt toast smell. This was like some sort of rotten animal smell. And she said it had never smelt like that before. In all the years that they've had these villas, it's never smelt like that before. So she contacts me, and I'm never embarrassed if people contact me again and go, "You've missed something." I go, "Right, I'm getting on it." So we talked about the issues, and I went back into Villa 1. Now, Clare had sent me some videos, which was very helpful. And she'd also done the floor plan for me. So I looked at the videos, I listened, I used my psychic abilities, found something very interesting. Upon doing more detective work, I whittled down this disturbance, the possibilities of this disturbance, to a rather unusual energetic presence. Now, it wasn't a spirit, it wasn't a dark or a demonic entity. I even asked if it was a magic entity or a cosmic being. Sometimes cosmic beings get stuck here, or they're observing us for whatever reason they observe us for. It was none of those. No, and no. What my pendulum said is that it was an elemental being. And I'd asked, as I went through my list, it was an elemental being. And you'll know why I missed it as I share the rest of this. Now I sat there going, what sort of elemental could it be? And I don't know a lot about the elemental realm. I only know, and I'm talking fairies, pixies, gnomes, that sort of realm. And yes, it does exist. Like the angels and the dark entities, it is just another dimension. So I asked, was it a gnome? Because I've dealt with gnomes before. They can be a little bit grumpy, a little bit angry, get a bit annoyed, and they do drop some very stinky stinks. But no, it wasn't a gnome. And I'm sitting there and I'm tapping on my chin going, And as I'm sitting there, in my mind, which you could say your third eye chakra, appeared a very dark, very dirty, stout-looking being. It was as if he'd suddenly uncloaked himself. Like he took off his invisibility cloak. He was a little bit annoyed that I was still there. He thought he'd hidden himself. But Clare knew there was something there. And what stood there was a troll. Now, don't think Harry Potter type trolls. They're not wandering around in toilets with big clubs. That's not the sort of troll that I saw. This was a very quiet, unassuming, please leave me alone, I don't want you here type being. I've dealt with one of these before. We've got one here in southern Tasmania he's still there on a property where I used to do tours. People have seen him. There's been all sorts of interactions. They don't know he's a troll. I've not told anybody else that other than one person. But that's the type of energy that's there. Now, this slightly annoyed being, this troll, was loitering in the bedroom. This is where she felt that presence. Now, that slightly choking feeling, it doesn't mean that he was choking her. That can be the vibe that they're putting out. He wasn't physically choking her, but she was feeling restricted in the throat. Remember my coughing and my voice changing and my raspiness? Our physical body is very sensitive to beings in the environment. Really, really is sensitive. Now, this being, he had come into this building with one of the previous tenants who loved to dabble in dark earth magic, as I was told. So he had possibly summoned this troll through some sort of magical practice that wasn't really thought through properly, and this being had sort of now, it's here and it's following him everywhere. I got told with my dowsing, I always ask because I'm a sticky beak, I got told it was around sort of 5 to 6 years ago he'd summoned this entity, so he hadn't actually done it on the property because I didn't find any magic, so I know that it wasn't done there, and he hadn't been living there for 5 to 6 years. Anyway, this being thought that the portal that I found in the dining room was going to be a way out for him. And he was very annoyed that I'd closed it and he was now stuck. He was miffed. He was not happy. Now, I didn't see his face, but I can describe sort of a shaggy type coat. That's what I see in my mind. But he has a very round, sort of very solid, muscular type body. But you only ever see them kind of hunched over and hiding. That's how I see these energies. And that's okay. That's just how they show themselves to me. Well, he was really annoyed because he thought that portal was his way out and I'd ruined his plan. This is why he'd uncloaked himself. He's like, I'm annoyed. So I offered an alternative proposal to Mr. Troll, that I would release some sort of emotional baggage from him because we all carry trapped emotions, always. And his were anger, rage, hostility, resentment, and something else. I can't remember. I didn't write it down. That's what he wanted to release. Because he'd been stuck with this man for a very long time and he was simply just wanting to go home. Now, I released from him those emotions and then I called on Archangel Michael to escort Mr. Troll back to his reality. Because I just couldn't send him back. I don't know where he came from. I don't open portals into other realities because I don't know what's on the other side. So I work with the archangelic beings. And I thought they had taken Mr. Troll back to his reality. And then I get another message from Clare going, it's still not right. She said, the stinky stink is back again. And I went, he's still here. He thinks he can stay. Maybe he took a liking to the location. Maybe it reminded him of home and he wanted to stay. I didn't get into an in-depth conversation with this being. So I had to make a negotiation with him. Remember, you've got to be respectful and you work with these entities. Through my pendulum, I talked to this energy being. And I'm like, do you want to go back to your location? Yes, but I don't want to go with the archangels. And I'm like, well, I can't help you otherwise. I don't know how to. But anyway, we found a solution. On this site, there are 3 villas. And only 2 of them were being occupied by the family. And I said to him, okay, would you be happy to go and occupy Villa 3 while Claire and her family are using the other 2? They're only going to be here for, 2 or 3 weeks. And he looked a bit annoyed. And I said, well, I can't offer you anything else. Can you please occupy Villa 3 until they leave? And he must have thought about it. And he went, okay, this is the only offering this human's got. And he went, okay, right, I will occupy Villa 3. And I'm just saying to you now, Mr. Troll, that if you go back to Villa 1, Claire will know that you're there because she's very sensitive to your energy. And he went, yeah. He's sort of waving his arm. He's like, I've had enough of you, go away. Because remember, trolls are very private. Too much interaction with them and they start to get annoyed. So I haven't heard from Claire since Mr. Troll moved into Villa 3. No more problems. No more stinky stinks. No more mind-splitting headaches. And no more I can't sleep. So through Claire using her bodily senses, using her body as a dowsing tool, she was able to sense energetic shifts in the environment. She just knew there was changes in the environment. And this is why I do this podcast every week. I keep pumping out these different episodes to offer another perspective about what is around us and how your body will alert you to what changes in the environment. Now, your signs and symptoms may be totally different to Claire's, but this is just an example. And just be aware when your spidey senses alert you to energetic shifts in the environment around you. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this episode today. I hope it's given you some food for thought and you'll start using your awareness. Now, whether you're a skeptic or you sit on the fence or you're a full believer, all three different types of people, all three different perspectives can use their bodily awareness, their psychic awareness, to just be aware of what's happening around you. So in episode 96, you're going to hear what it's like to live in a haunted house here in Tasmania and what I did to rectify this family situation. Now, Marie is going to share with you, this is an interview, so Marie is going to share with you the before and after changes felt by her family, who were once haunted by the shushing man, the creepy corner in her daughter's bedroom, and the bursting face man. Now, he was interesting. He was dropping his rage all over the house. So tune in next week and listen to what Marie has to share with you. So thank you for joining me today. And don't forget, if you want to share a paranormal experience just with myself, or you would like me to share one of your experiences through my podcast, you can do a voice recording, or you can write out your experience and I will read it exactly as you have written. You can email me at spiritualbeing44@gmail.com. And for information on paranormal house clearing, you can visit my website, Spiritual Being. You will find the address in the description box. And I look forward to sharing this spooky space again with you next week. And remember, life is perfectly paranormal.